They say every man's home is his castle. But what happens when the moat gets hijacked by a board of clipboard tyrants? It was a crisp autumn morning when I found the padlock. Not mine, rusty, cheap, and clamped across the ranch gate I installed 10 years ago with my own 2 hands. A bright orange sign fluttered in the wind. Access revoked, HO enforcement. Just like that, locked out of my own land. Now let me back up. I own 47 acres just beyond Ridgepoint Hollow, technically bordering the Maple Ridge subdivision. I've lived here longer than the HOA's been incorporated. My granddad ran cattle here. My dad turned it into a working ranch, and I built a life with my own blood and boots in this soil. But apparently, the HOA Karen, Queen and her clipboard army decided that since the only gravel road leading to my gate passed within the HOA visual perimeter, they now had jurisdiction. Absurd, right? They didn't send a warning. No notice. Just that padlock, and a smug email saying I could file an appeal in writing to their next board meeting in 5 weeks. Thing is, I didn't panic, because what they didn't know was that I built that gate with more than hinges and steel. I built it with a backup plan, one that was just waiting for someone, entitled enough to lock me out of my own home. And Karen, she walked right into it. The Ridgepoint Hollow HOA wasn't always my problem. For most of my life, that patch of designer homes and country club backyards was a distant dot on the horizon. My ranch sits tucked past the ridge, nestled between forest and rolling pasture, and I liked it that way. Off-grid, peaceful, no nonsense. But then Karen moved in. She wasn't just your average HOA busybody. Karen came armed with a law degree, a clipboard, and a thirst for control that made tyrants look reasonable. Her house was the closest one to my road, though still a good 2 acres away, and for years, she didn't pay me any mind. Then her precious HOA voted her president, and suddenly, the gravel road I maintained for 30 years became an unsightly liability crossing into HOA visual boundaries. It started small. First, she sent me a letter demanding I pave or reroute the road to reduce dust dispersion into Ridgepoint. I ignored it. A week later, a county code inspector showed up. Coincidence? I thought not. But since the road was pre-existing and on my deed, I passed every inspection. Then came the signage campaign. HOA posted, "Private neighborhood no," through access signs at the junction to my access road. Even though the road wasn't theirs, neighbors started getting warning letters if their sprinklers sprayed. Near the visual easement, I started documenting everything. I figured that would be enough. But Karen wasn't done. One morning, my delivery guy called me, said he got turned away at my gate by a man in a security shirt with an HOA badge. I rushed home. There it was, the lock, the orange sign, the security guard sipping coffee like he owned the place. "I live here," I told him, holding back the fire in my chest. "This gate is mine." He shrugged. "HOA jurisdiction now. Talk to them." I didn't argue, not yet. Instead, I walked the long way in, 5 miles through the back trail, boots crunching under dry pine, fists clenched. When I got inside, my ranch was untouched, but my security cameras had caught everything. The guard, Karen, the bolt cutters. That's when I knew. This wasn't just about a road. This was about power. And that padlock? That wasn't just metal. It was a declaration of war. But here's the thing Karen never figured out. I built that gate. And I built it for a moment exactly like this. Over the next 2 weeks, the HOA turned their petty crusade into a full-on siege. Karen issued 3 non-resident encroachment fines, totaling over $2,000 even, though I wasn't in their HOA, had no signed agreement, and had been there decades longer than any of them. My mail stopped showing up. Turns out Karen told the Postal Service I was no longer occupying the property due to an active access dispute. She even emailed the Sheriff's Department, claiming I was trespassing on my own land. But the real kicker? She had a landscaper dig a shallow trench across the road just beyond the gate. Said it was for erosion control. It was a moat, plain and simple, to block my truck tires. I tried calling her, civilly. She answered once. "Karen, you've overstepped," I said. "You're trespassing. This is illegal. You can appeal at the next board meeting," she said, sounding like a smug call center robot. "Or you can follow the new access guidelines." Guidelines? A shuttle from the HOA entrance will be available for escorted visits. I nearly laughed. She thought I'd ride a golf cart shuttle to visit my cows. I contacted a lawyer. He said it could take months to resolve. The HOA wasn't technically claiming ownership, just enforcing visual easement behavior, a gray area in the county code. They were manipulating loopholes, so I stopped reacting, and I started preparing. That gate? I designed it with a second latch, hidden under a metal sleeve, and a custom tracking sensor built into the base post. Why? Because I'd caught thieves before, and because I don't trust people who think signs give them power. The moment that lock went on, my system started logging every entry, every time it was opened, every tamper alert. I even had voice-recorded proof of Karen's little trench-building escapade. All I needed now was one more move from her. One final overreach. She gave it to me the next morning. I woke to the sound of diesel engines. Peeked through my camera feed. Karen had brought in a road crew, and they were laying concrete on my road. That's when I smiled, because it was finally time to spring the trap. I called my buddy, Marcus, former county road supervisor turned private consultant, and gave him the rundown. He came with a drone, a permit folder, and a smirk. By noon, we'd flown over the site, documented the trench, the unauthorized crew, and the concrete. Turns out Karen hadn't filed any permits. Even better, she'd hired an HOA member's son-in-law to do the job. Off books, meaning no insurance, no legal cover. We printed every photo, every timestamp, every entry log from my smart gate. Then I made 3 calls. First, to the sheriff's department. Trespass and property damage complaint. Second, to the county code office, with a formal report of unauthorized roadwork and safety violations. And third, to my lawyer, who already had a civil injunction prepared. But I wasn't done. I loaded up my truck with my old generator, a speaker, and 2 massive signs. I placed them just inside the gate, behind the trench, facing Ridgepoint Hollow. One sign read, "Private ranch property, federal wildlife lease in effect." The other, "Access denied, illegal interference under investigation, all activity monitored." Then I played the speaker, a looped audio recording of Karen admitting she had the road crew dig the trench to keep him out. By the time Karen returned for her inspection drive, there were 2 county vehicles at the gate, an officer asking questions, and the HOA security guy being asked for ID. Karen tried to argue until the county rep pulled out a cease and desist order. "You're trespassing, Ms. Langley. Step back." She froze. All that arrogance? Gone. The following week, everything unraveled for Karen. The county ordered the entire road. Crew project dismantled at HOA expense. My lawyer filed a formal cease and desist, and within 48 hours, Karen and her board were served with legal paperwork for trespassing, property damage, and interference with a federally recognized agricultural easement. Oh yeah, I leased part of my land for native species preservation years ago. Another layer of protection she never checked. The sheriff's department opened a formal investigation into the lock incident and trench sabotage. Karen was forced to resign as HOA president after 2 board members turned on her. Apparently, she'd spent over $12,000 of HOA funds on her ranch control initiative without approval. But my favorite moment? Standing on my porch, coffee in hand, watching a county contractor fill the trench and pave it back to gravel on HOA dime. Karen drove past in her white SUV, slower than usual. Her sunglasses didn't hide the glare of humiliation. I nodded at her. Didn't say a word. My gate stood wide open. Not just a gate anymore, a symbol. Because she thought locking me out would break me. But she didn't know I built that gate with my own hands. And every screw, every bolt, was part of something bigger. Looking back, the strangest part wasn't the lock or the trench or even the fake fines. It was how far some people will go to feel in control. Karen didn't care about roads or dust or easements. She wanted to win. At something. But you can't win against someone who built the road you're trying to block. I didn't just outsmart her. I waited, documented, stayed calm. Because revenge isn't loud. It's patient. That's the lesson. Build your life like it might be tested. Build your gates not just to keep people out, but to prove you were always meant to be in. If you made it to the end of this story, comment "Justice served" down below. I'll be watching for you. And hey, what would you have done if someone locked you out of your own land? Would you fight? Or would you let the trap close around them? Sometimes the best justice is letting someone think they've won. Right before the hinges turn and the gate swings wide, on your terms.